introduce our speakers for the night. For the first, let me read a little bios, guys, so sit tight. You guys sent them in, they're kind of long. Dr. Michael Rota is a professor of philosophy at the University of St. Thomas with an interest in the application of generative AI in education and corporate training. He is developing an interactive tutor powered by GPT-4, which enables instructors to create an AI tutor built around their own course material. Dr. Rota is a graduate of Stanford University for his bachelor's, St. Louis University for a PhD, and Harvard for his postdoc, and is currently obtaining a master's in data science at the University of St. Thomas. Thank you for being with us, Dr. Rota. And as well, we have Nick Stokman. Nick is a serial entrepreneur with experience in internet SaaS and AI in the AI space. His most recent venture, VidGrid, a video platform for asynchronous video communication in the workplace, is used by many of the country's leading universities and businesses, including Mortenson Construction, Medtronic, and Berkeley. It was acquired by Paylocity for an 8-figure sum on April 3rd, 2020. Upon acquisition, over 178,000 videos per month were being created on the platform. Nick currently leads AI product strategy for Paylocity, the nation's fastest growing HCM platform. Nick is a mentor and graduate of the prestigious startup accelerator program TechStars, and in 2017 was named one of Minnesota's top 10 tech influencers by the Star Tribune for his leadership and vision in the technology space. Under the leadership of then FBI Director James Comey, this is a curveball you weren't expecting, Nick's company was also recruited by the FBI to build video intelligence software codenamed Treadstone, used by over 500 FBI agents around the world, including in Syria, Iraq, and Gaza. When he's not thinking about AI and its applications in business, Nick enjoys playing guitar, cycling, and spending time with his 5 children. Without further ado, Dr. Michael Rota and Nick Stokman.
Kind of filter through the bio a little bit. Sorry for the long intro. So I'm Nick Stokman, and like you said, I lead product AI strategy at Paylocity since my company's been acquired. One thing I want to talk about really quick is why I'm passionate about AI, and the reason is that I see it. And so as you listen, the reason I'm passionate about AI is I see this opportunity and this ability that it has to empower people and to give them access to skills that they might never have had before. So as you listen to this presentation, I know we'll have time for questions at the end of what are the ethical ramifications and what are, is this good for humanity, is it not? And we can get into that. But as we go into this, I want you to approach it with an open mind and the concept of like, this could be something that's very helpful for you and for so many people to accomplish things that they maybe never would have been able to. How do I switch slides here? So background here, Ben already went into that. The first thing I want to talk about is ChatGPT and why it matters and what's changing in the AI landscape. I'll run through that. I'll talk about some of the foundational models that are the core drivers of what's changing in AI. We'll look through some business use cases in which you can use it, and then I'll pass it over to Dr. Rota, who will talk about retrieval augmented generation, which is a specific application of AI that can be really helpful for you and your businesses. So, a little bit of history. We had kind of 2 stages of AI to really oversimplify. And what it used to be is that there were special purpose models that were used for every individual use case. So you had one model for speech recognition, one for computer vision, one for speech synthesis, music generation, what have you, right? And this was kind of the age of AI, like the Siri thing. So you ask it to call Mike and it's like, I'm navigating to Florida or something like this. And you're like, it's gotta be, they kept saying AI was coming and I kept thinking, it doesn't seem like it, because it was not that useful. So we went from this type of AI to all of a sudden an AI that scores 90% on the bar exam within a year. What happened, and is it having an impact? Are people using it? Well, the first thing is, yes, it is having an impact and people are using it. So this is the number of days it took ChatGPT to, at these other various companies, to hit 1 million users. I don't know if that's like a day or whatnot. It hit 100 million users within 30 days. It hit 1 billion users within 6 months. It's the fastest growing company in the history of the world by far. So what changed? The biggest driving factor in the change of AI has to do with what are called large language models. And these are the things that are behind what is called now like generative AI. To simplify again, what large language models do is they predict the next token. So they look at everything as a, have you ever had it in your phone, you're sending a text message and it starts to predict what you might say and then you put that word in and something else predicts. That's what a large language model does, and what it does is it predicts the most like tokens. They're technically tokens, which can be subsets of a word, but we can just call them words for now. It predicts the next most likely word. And what people learned was that you didn't have to just apply this token prediction to like a paper or something for a word. You could also apply it to images or to any sort of thing. So you could say, hey, if there's a green pixel here and a white pixel here, then the next most likely one is a blue pixel. And so therefore you could start creating images, and you could start creating music, and you could start creating art. So we kind of found this pattern in reality where you can predict things, and that's why AI is starting to accelerate so dramatically, is because all of the models are kind of coming together into one that can be applied to multiple use cases. It's very interesting because you'll sometimes see people talking, oh, we have an AI application that's been developed for 20 years that does a specific purpose. The interesting thing is these general purpose models, in most of the cases, are outperforming a lot of the special purpose models. So who are some of the key players in the space? I think this is really important to understand. There's OpenAI's ChatGPT. OpenAI is a parent company that has multiple products, one of which is ChatGPT. There's Google's Gemini, which was called Bard before, but they've renamed. There's Amazon's Bedrock, Meta's Llama, and Midjourney is an open source platform that's doing image generation that is far and above the best image generation tool. I think, so what's important to understand is these are the key players that are building what are called the foundational models, the LLMs, and that's kind of what everything else is being built on. So you've probably seen like 1,000 different technologies coming out, and it's like AI to take notes, AI to do. Those platforms are, 99.9% of the time being built on one of these foundational models, if that makes sense. What's the impact on the business world? Well, it's huge. It was, this is a study from Accenture from this summer. They estimate that 40% of all working hours can be impacted by existing LLM technology. There was a more recent study from McKinsey in June that estimated that 70% of all the time we spend on work right now can be automated with existing AI technology, not new stuff, existing stuff with this new generative AI. That has more to do with like the time we spend. The LLMs still are not that good at taking over a whole role, but they can save you a lot of time and bring expertise in a lot of situations. So what are some of the ways you can use it? These are just simple. I mean, there's so many ways you can use AI that it's kind of a loaded question. I think the first question would probably be, what are your problems? And then you could look at, hey, can AI solve this? But I mean, marketing, writing cold emails, writing website content, analyzing data from marketing campaign. As people look for work, a great use case for ChatGPT is have it look through your LinkedIn profile or your resume. It'll give you great advice on how to improve it or things you might want to add. You could also, if you're looking at a job and there's a description of what they're looking for in your resume, throw both of those into ChatGPT and ask how you might tweak your resume to fit and be more like appealing to the employer. Recruiting, creating job descriptions, software, writing code, answering legal questions. You do want to be somewhat careful about something called hallucination, which I'll talk about in a second. Business strategy. An interesting thing to know is that McKinsey estimates that 75% of the impact of generative AI and efficiency gains from it will have to do with customer support, sales, and marketing. So use cases where the answer is not necessarily, it doesn't need to be exactly right, it's kind of a fluid type of answer. That's where LLMs do very well. And also, you want to focus on use cases that allow you to be the final judge and determine whether the information is accurate. So if you have it come up with marketing ideas, you can look at them and say, hey, that does seem like a good idea, or that doesn't. LLMs do have the potential to what's called hallucinate, and so you want to be careful of that. I can go into that. Has anyone heard of hallucination? Okay, so hallucination, what it is basically it's where the model kind of goes rogue and it makes up things, or it gives you information that's not correct. And so that's why you want to, it does have that possibility, and Dr. Rota is going to talk about a method called RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation, where you can reduce the likelihood of a model hallucinating. But in absence of that, focus on use cases where you can review and be the final judge, or So best practices when using ChatGPT, I do want to touch on, well, first, use ChatGPT 4. Sam, my brother-in-law Sam has heard me say this way too many times. But 3.5 is the free version, and that tested like 10% in the bar exam. 4 tested in the 90th percent. So it's really a different experience. It's $20 a month. I use AI multiple hours a day now. So it's worth using that if you're gonna try it out. Use follow-up commands. So one of the cool things with large language models, if you have it generate a resume for you, or review a resume, or come up with a marketing strategy, or a campaign email to raise money, whatever you're having to do, you can use follow-up commands to refine what the model has given you and to make adjustments to it. So if it writes a job description, you say, hey, that's good, but can you make it a little bit more, succinct or whatever? You can tell it to do what you want it to do. Start asking ChatGPT everything. I am kind of ADHD and dyslexic, so I use it a lot. I take pictures of my fridge. So when the food, I'll take a picture and it'll tell me what I could make for lunch or dinner, and then it can create the shopping list too. So I love it. Think of ChatGPT like a person. Now it's not a person, it doesn't have a soul, and it doesn't have awareness. It's just combining. You can kind of think of it like it's taking information from the internet and just splicing it together or something, right? But the way that you're gonna get the best use out of it is if you think of it like a person, and like you're building, there's something called GPTs where you can create kind of custom bots. If you're creating a GPT, you can think of it like, hey, I want you to be a Harvard grad, MBA in marketing, and you're gonna review all of my social media posts. You can kind of make it into a person, then have it take on a role and review your stuff. But think of it as a person. You can ask a person questions. You can give a person things to review. You can ask a person to write up stuff for you. If you use that mindset, you'll get better use out of the platform. Watch out for hallucinations, like I said. Focus on use cases that allow for review, like I mentioned. And then you can limit scope, which means I do product strategy, so we do a lot of competitive analysis, right? So I can ask ChatGPT, I can say, look at all of the human capital management players across the space and compare how they're using AI in recruiting, software applications. And it'll come back with a matrix of all this, of its scoring, right? But what I noticed is that it could start to hallucinate and provide information that wasn't as accurate. What dramatically reduced hallucination was when I limited the scope and told it exactly where I wanted it to look. So I said, hey, compare the HCM platforms and only reference this web, so I put in the links and I said, only reference these websites and these sources. If you are unsure of the answer you're giving, make sure that you call that out and tell me that you're speculating, and also always provide sources. So there's, as you use it more, you'll start to learn how to leverage it effectively and know when it's giving you an accurate answer and when it might not be. With that, I'll hand it over to Dr. Rota.
Okay, hi, thanks for coming. How many people have used GPT 3.5 or any version of ChatGPT before? Okay, about half the crowd. How many people use it several times a week or more? Maybe a quarter, a third. Okay. Who's someone who just raised your hand? In the blue. What do you use it for?
Mostly personal hobbies that I like to run around, a little bit of software development or even for video game strategy sometimes.
So you're asking questions?
Yeah.
Like, how do I program this?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Somebody else who raised their hand who uses it fairly frequently. What do you use it for?
Mostly marketing, use it for marketing. So if I'm going to do a description of a house, I'll give it a lot of inputs on just what I know about the house, and then ask it to come up with something that's going to be helpful to market the house well.
Are you a real estate agent? How does that help you?
So it'll come up with descriptions and very succinctly as well. So I'll tell it like, okay, that's too long. Do it again in one paragraph, and it'll add the necessary elements, but also like define it well.
So you're the final arbiter, but you probably speeded up your process a little bit.
And so I'll often start off with saying like, if you're a realtor in the Twin Cities,
Yes,
trying to sell this house in the winter,
yes,
give me a description that's going to. So like, the more I define it, the better that answer is.
yeah, good. One other volunteer.
I'm playing around with the idea of using it as the graphic design basis for a clothing brand.
Oh, have you played with Midjourney?
Not yet, so
Check it out. Nick showed it to me. You can tell it, I want a picture of a red-haired boy playing football, wearing tennis shoes, and it looks like a photograph, but people are not gonna need to hire models as much anymore. Or it can do, more graphic art, like painting type stuff. So, yeah, a lot of possibilities there. Okay, if you haven't used it, I would recommend you check it out. A new technology, like when computers came out, it takes time. Some people adopt earlier, other people adopt it later, and that's fine. But sort of the way you're gonna get value from a new technology like this is by playing around with it. Because otherwise you won't understand how it could help you. So you can go to chat.openai.com and have set up a free account. It takes a minute. And you'll get a screen like this. You won't see. I have a account that I pay $20 a month for, so you won't see the stuff on the left, but you'll see something here. How can I help you today? And then at the bottom, you can type in a question. So a year ago, Nick and I are friends from church, and he works with AI in his work. And a year ago, he just started telling me all the cool things he could do with LLMs, large language models. And I was interested, but I didn't do anything with it. And then gradually I realized, I have a question, maybe this thing. Oh, he was the one who signed me up. He's just like, give me your phone. Here, now you have an account. I'm just like, thank you. And so I started using it. And I find like now, I used to call the IT department at St. Thomas, every 2 weeks or something when something was going on with my computer that I couldn't figure out. I hardly ever call them anymore because it's way faster just to ask GPT 3.5 or GPT 4. So like I have an Apple, there's the thing on the bottom, the dock, it's like shows you all the applications, and it just disappeared. And I called the IT tech desk, and they're like, I don't know, we'll get back to you. I asked ChatGPT, I had to fix it in 2 minutes. And so I started doing that a lot. And then, so you can learn things by asking questions with GPT 3.5. If you're in a job where you think there might be tasks that GPT-4 could maybe help you with, you pay $20 for 1 month. It's super easy to cancel, and just try it out and play with it. And so this is GPT-4. Okay, one thing that's different is there is a little icon, paperclip icon here. Now you can attach a document. You can put in a 50-page PDF and say, does this discuss blah, blah, blah? Or please summarize this 10-page paper for me. That's gonna be a nice time saver. And I've never tried it, but Nick says, so it must be true, you can put in images. Is that what you're saying? Is that how you do it? You just attach a picture. And then you say, like, what can I make based on the food in my fridge? This is insane. Like, you really, you can do.
Or like maybe like your water heater is broken or
Yeah.
the wires aren't hooked up right. Take a picture, ask ChatGPT, and it can tell you like.
Yeah. Proceed with caution, but it's okay, so a theme I want to get across, I might as well bring it up now, is some people, as you see more and more what it can do, find this a little scary. Are people going to be replaced? Maybe. I encourage you instead to think of this as, this is a tool that can make me more productive. And that can help free up my time to do things that only humans can do, that AI can't do. Okay, so what do I want to say about GPT-4? What can you do with it? You can attach files, you can ask questions. So I'm a teacher, and I give tests and quizzes. And after a while, after I give the same test for 2 semesters in a row, maybe I get a little nervous. I wonder if the test is out there. I don't want some students to have an unfair advantage. So you got to create a new test, same content, slightly different questions. It takes a long time. Not anymore. I just attach my old test into that paperclip icon. I say, please create a test very similar to this one, but with different numbers and examples. 80% of the questions are also. Just it saves me the whole task, because it happens in about half the time. So there are many, many options. You can get this to do things for you, and you can ask questions. However, there are 2 problems when you try to learn by asking questions. There are many problems, but there are 2 I want to talk about. One is occasionally the model makes stuff up. So I was working on a book project, and I wanted to find a book on a particular topic. And I hadn't found much in the secondary literature looking into ordinary ways on the St. Thomas website, on Google Scholar. So I asked GPT-4 for academic sources on this topic. It came back and it gave me this awesome book, and I thought, by this author, this title, this publisher, I thought, how can I have missed that? Go on to St. Thomas website. Oh, we don't have the book. Go on to WorldCat, which catalogs all the books in the world. Not on WorldCat. Go on to Amazon. Can't buy it on Amazon. Okay, this is a hallucination. It just made it up. Why do the models do this? Yeah, this book is by Elizabeth Stewart entitled this. No, it doesn't exist. Okay? So, why does it do this? It has to do with the way a large language model works. They're not a storehouse of facts. There is no understanding of the words being said. It's just predicting the right next word. Like, this word would probably go well next, based on the patterns in human language that it's been trained on. So sometimes the sensible word to come next just adds up to a false statement. Okay, so that's called hallucination. The other limitation is that you might want to ask an LLM questions about a topic that it wasn't trained on. Maybe at your company you'd like to know how much product did we ship to Arkansas last month. GPT 3.5 and GPT-4 have no idea. Furthermore, GPT-4, the latest one, its training goes up through, I think, April 2023. Anything that happened in the world after that doesn't know about that. And it knows that it doesn't know, typically, but it can't help you. So, the solution to that is something called retrieval augmented generation. At least that is a technology, or it's an approach that's meant to deal with both those problems. And it was developed in 2020 by an employee at Facebook, and it's very widely used now. So here's how it works. Think of it like this. The large language model is really good at simulating human reasoning. And you're really good at finding facts, because you're a human being, you actually understand what you're talking about. So what you want to do with retrieval augmented generation is you want to give the large language model access to information, data, facts on the topic you're interested in. And then you ask your question, how much product did we ship to Arkansas last month? Please answer by consulting this information. And then what happens is the LLM bases its answer on that, and you trust that information. And furthermore, it tells you exactly where it got its answer, so you can go check. So a lot of companies are building these. You can see how this would be useful for a customer service chatbot. I want to know how the Apple computer products work, so someday, before too long, you'll probably be able to go onto the Apple website and just ask, how many of your computers can do this or that. So you don't have to read through 500 manuals, or it can pull out the information. So let me show you an example of retrieval augmented generation. So the other cool thing you get, I sound like a salesman for OpenAI. I have no financial interest. It's just really cool. The other thing you get when you pay your $20 GPT Plus subscription is you get access to the GPT store. So what is that? Other individuals for free or just have created these retrieval augmented generation products and other things which are more complicated. Let me show you one of them. So, Consensus. Your AI research assistant. Search 200 million academic papers from Consensus with science-based answers and draft content with accurate citations. So this is a retrieval augmented generation product. It has 2 million, it's been used 2 million times, over 2 million times. It's only 3 weeks old, or maybe a month old. So this is super helpful. So you can ask, you would type in what you're interested in. I'm just going to click on this because it's easy. Is sauna good for heart health? And now, let me tell you what's going on. The question, is sauna good for heart health, has been translated into a list of numbers, which in some way represent the meaning of the question. That list of numbers, vector, is then compared to a whole database of similar lists of numbers, which represent the meaning of little chunks in all those 200 million academic papers. With just a mathematical computation that's supposed to represent similarity, we have found the 10 chunks of academic papers that are most similar in content to our question. Those have been turned back into English, then passed to GPT-4 like this. Hi, I want to know if sauna is good for heart health. You're a professional academic expert. Please answer my question by looking at these 10 documents. And then, what has it told us? Sauna bathing may effectively reduce the risk of vascular diseases, blah, 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 and it gives you the citation to the academic paper, which you can go search for. I get so excited about this, I'm going on way too long. I better hurry up. So it gives you, thank you, Nick, it gives you a ton of citations. So that's what plain old large language model wasn't doing for you. Now you can check it, now you know where it's getting its stuff. Okay, that's general information. If you're a company, you might have proprietary or just your own private information that you want to work with. So companies are building these RAG chatbots for their own stuff. So like I have a friend who's the head of IT at a manufacturing company, and they are making a product like this for their own internal salespeople. So if they have a question like, which one of my tools? Which one of our tools? How many of our tools do this? They don't have to read through all the manuals. It just tells them, well, these 3 tools. And the idea is once their salespeople get comfortable with it and they're liking it, then they're going to release it to the general public so that the owners of these tools can go. You don't have to read through the manual. Okay, I've said that like 20 times. I'm sorry. Let me show you an example of one of these. So just in 30 minutes, I threw something up. It's private, only I can see it on the GPT. This is a GPT. It could be on the GPT store, but I know no one's interested in this, so I'm not going to do that. So I work at the University of St. Thomas. What if you wanted to know some policy, like from the faculty handbook. Well, what you could do with this technology, this has been given access to a bunch of St. Thomas policies. So you can ask it questions like, what are the criteria to get emeritus professor status? Like, when can I retire and still get to use the library? And it'll tell me. So you couldn't get that from GPT-4, but you can get that from this. So that's right. Okay. How are we doing on time?
5 more minutes?
Good, I'll talk for 5 more minutes. Just coming up. So, what I've shown you so far is when you're asking it questions. Let's flip it around. What if it asks you questions to help you learn? And you give answers, and then it tells you how you're doing. So that's the next application I want to show you. That's what Nick and I have been working on. So, should I tell you how this works first, or should we try it out first? Let's try it out. What do you want to do? Should we do a logic problem, or a stats problem, or an econ problem? You get to decide. Okay, you get to decide. Right, let's do logic. Okay. So, let me tell you the problem this is meant to solve, and then we'll use it. So when I teach introductory philosophy at St. Thomas, I do about 3-4 weeks on logic in my introductory course. And some students pick it up really fast and like it, and some of them struggle with it, and they keep trying. But it's difficult because I've got 30 students, and if I spend all the time these ones need, these ones will be bored out of their minds. And if I just stop when these ones get it, these ones aren't going to do good on the test. So I do my best to hit the middle, and I mean this is the downside of classroom instruction. It's not personalized, it's not like a one-on-one tutor. Furthermore, after I lecture on logic and I give them these paper homeworks to do, they got to wait 4 days for me to grade them and hand them back. And so like when they're doing the first question, the second question, the third question, they haven't gotten any feedback from me. Wouldn't it be nice if right when they got the first question wrong, they get immediate feedback, then they could get the second question right? Okay. Furthermore, with the product you're going to see, the students who need more work can keep doing problems. Third problem. So this is, I'll tell you what the St. Thomas faculty are talking about with regards to AI. How do we deal with cheating? We've seen a huge uptick in cheating. It's not always easy to prove. It's a lot harder to prove than it used to be. If the students are clever, they can cheat, and there's no, I'm going to tell you how to do it, but you can do it in a way that the teacher can't figure out. So, some people are talking about how are we going to make our grading fair? And the best solution I've heard from several other people is going back to pen and paper exams. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do in my intro course. Can't cheat on those. So then, kind of got a problem, which is this. If I keep using my paper homeworks, some of the students might cheat on them. And why would they do that? Because they attach a grade to the homework assignments to incentivize them to do them. So the new approach I think teachers are going to start taking is splitting learning and grading. So the idea is like, I'm your coach. I want you to get an A on this test. I'm doing everything I can to teach you, and outside of class you can work with this. And then your grade will come from the in-class tests. So here is the first question on a logic test, logic homework. I cannot believe I've never had this error out on that. What is going on?
They're on you.
It was working like 30 minutes ago. Okay, there's another one we can go to. Okay, and this is working. I feel like a snake oil salesman now. I promise that was not normal. So here's the first question. Now, you would have been in class and I would have told you what a conjunctive proposition is. A proposition is just a claim. And a conjunction or conjunctive proposition is a claim of the form A and B. So A is a complete claim and B is a complete claim. And you know from taking true false tests in high school, for a proposition like that to count as true, both parts need to be true. Right? So if I say lions are mammals and whales are fish, that's false because the second part is false. Okay. So what's interesting about this question, make up a false conjunctive proposition, is this. How many good answers are there to that? An infinite number, right? So how can you get a computer to help you grade that? I mean, you can't tell it all the infinite right answers. Well, but now you can. So should we get this question right or wrong? Let's get it wrong. Okay. You can get this wrong in many interesting ways. Let's give it a false proposition that's not a conjunctive proposition. So let's pretend we're a little confused. So I'll put in 1 plus 1 equals 3. Pretending I'm a student who thinks false. Okay, this is false. But forgetting what conjunctive proposition is.
Sorry.
1 plus 1 is 3. This takes time, but in the eventual version it's much quicker. Okay, so here's what it says. Your answer, 1 plus 1 is 3, is not a conjunctive proposition because it does not have the form A and B, where both A and B are complete propositions. To make it a false conjunctive proposition, you could say 1 plus 1 is 2 and 1 plus 1 is 3. Here, the first conjunct is true, but the second is false, making the entire proposition is false. Just the sort of thing I'd tell a student. Okay, so this was straightforward tutor mode. If you put it on Socratic tutor mode, then you get it wrong. It doesn't tell you right away what the right answer is. It leads you by asking you questions. And this, all the heavy lifting is done by the large language model. So what's going on behind the scenes is this. When the student writes in their answer, it says, enter, a message gets sent to GPT-4. Here's what the message says. Hi, I'm a student. I just answered this question. Think up a false conjunctive proposition. And my answer was 1 plus 1 is 3. Please evaluate my answer by comparing it to the correct answer provided by the instructor, which is, and then there's a little paragraph which just explains the definition of a conjunctive proposition. And by the way, I haven't seen that yet, but that's the right answer. And so here's the deal. GPT-4 was good at anyway, at logic. When you tell it the answer to the question, it's really good. It's like 99% accurate. So maybe that'll be helpful. And here's why it'll be helpful. Because now the learning that my students do outside of class will be a little more effective, which means we'll have more time in class to talk person to person about existentially relevant things and connect as people to do the things that they can't do with something like this. So I see it as a tool, not a replacement. Okay.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Nick. Let's bring our chairs up here. We're just gonna so we be more front and center. We got the lights back on now. All right. So that was all really fascinating. I'm sure everyone has many different ideas where they're going to be using it. I mean, at the very least, to learn about different things. I mean, I use it personally myself for it just kind of replaces Google, right? Like instead of just asking and trying to top 5 reasons to do this or various things. I've been messing around with it for work as well. If you go on to the Archdiocese St. Paul Minneapolis Catholic School website, I dare you to try to find the paragraph that I wrote just with ChatGPT. You won't find it. It's so good. Or find it somehow. But I had to sneak it in. It was wonderful. But here's I kind of want to start this first question to you both. It's more general. So, Google's what, a CEO or the president, they've said that this is more important invention than fire, right? This is more important than electricity, and this is going to just completely change the game. This is internet, like the internet it pales into comparison to what these generative AI LLMs are going to be capable of doing just within 5 years, let alone longer than that. What do you guys think? Is that true? What's the apt comparison for these generative AIs? Is it fire? Is it electricity? Is it internet? Is it sliced bread? What is how should we mentally think of this in terms of its impact on our lives in the future?
I think like to know the impact, there's still a lot of unknown. I think the biggest thing will be shown over the next couple of iterations of whether it continues to increase at this exponential rate or whether it slows down. There's two things that are, fundamentally it's changed the world because the retrieval, the knowledge is not what it used to be because the model can know the knowledge. So it's like what makes us unique as humans is one, from a religious standpoint, like our desire for God and our need for the infinite, but also our ability to reason. But like the ability to just strictly know a bunch of information is less necessary than it used to be now with this AI. In terms of whether it will become superhuman or super intelligent, there's two things that are like fundamental problems for large language models currently, and one is called drift and the other is hallucination, what we've talked about. Drift is this phenomena where they make an improvement to one part of the model and for some reason it gets wrong somewhere else, or it gets worse somewhere else. So it might get a little better at math, but then all of a sudden it's worse at poetry or something like that, and we don't exactly know why that works. There's also there's a recent article from MIT that said we know remarkably little about how these things work, and it's really true. So making improvements to them can be harder, and they can get worse in different spots. So drift, and then the hallucination. Can we solve the hallucination problem? And I think we'll see that over the next ChatGPT 5 is coming out soon, and if it continues to increase quickly, then it will be it will be a complete game changer. But regardless, even where LLMs are right now, it's definitely going to change the economy fundamentally.
I think that's a great question. I really don't know the answer, so I won't pretend, but I can speculate. So I can just throw out a few ideas here, but don't take this with a large grain of salt. So I think the comparisons to the invention of the computer and the internet are helpful. In both cases, they didn't change the world overnight, and we still, human life is basically the same. But they did help increase productivity, drive worker productivity, which takes wages up, and they've changed a lot of the way we do the tasks we do. And similarly with the internet, you used to find your information in books and papers and stuff, and now you do a lot online. So you're doing the same thing, you're looking stuff up, but you're doing it in a different way, and it's a little faster with the internet. Now it's going to be a little faster still. So what will be interesting is seeing how much better the models get, and what uses people come up with. So, which is yet unknown, they haven't been invented yet because it's so new. I will say two things that intrigue me. One is Sam Altman, who's the head of OpenAI, said, GPT 3.5 was a lot better than, let me start with 3.5. 3.5 was better than 2, and 2 was better than 1. 4 was a lot better than 3.5, and GPT-5 is going to be a lot better. So he sees room for growth. Just to give you a sense of how amazing GPT-4 is, it has 1 trillion parameters. So think of it's not actually a single equation, but think of an equation with 1 trillion variables. And each variable is like an input, and each variable has a coefficient that you're multiplying it to, and that coefficient has been fine-tuned or trained on all the data. Here's how they trained it. For 1 year, they took all this information from the internet, and they took little sentences or 2-sentence chunks and stuff from the internet. And then they would take out some portion of the end of the sentence, like the last 3 words, the last 7 words. And they would give the model the first 15 words. And they would say, what do you think comes next? And it would just mechanistically, according to its computation, come up with its best answer. And then, this is all being done by the computer automatically. And then it would be compared to here's what actually came next. And now rework those weights or the coefficients on those 1 trillion parameters. We'll just tweak them a little bit. Now let's try again. It did that 24/7 for a year, okay? Then for 6 months, human beings worked with it to give it feedback. And they're trying to answer questions. So, 1 trillion parameters. So there's 100 trillion connections in the human brain. So there's still a lot of room to grow, it seems like. Okay, that's done.
Interesting. I'm sorry. I always get thrown off because you guys are talking. I just start getting lost in my own thoughts. But my next question, another kind of a general question would be, I mean, again, I just want to help. I want to help everyone here kind of place what this is and have the right concept in their minds for how to think about this. And you're comparing it to the internet, and everyone needs to. You said before, Nick, it's less necessary than ever to know particular knowledge, and that's what I'm in the education space. That's what everyone's been saying for the last 15 years since Google, right? It's all the kids got their phones, so why do we need to know anything, right? And I mean, we can see the literacy rates, with that kind of thinking. But how is it different than the internet, right? I'm going to take a little guess, and then you can tell me how my thinking is right or wrong and refine things. It seems as if, you said before that these LLMs don't actually know things. And you've been saying like simulated rationality, that they're just guessing the next thing. But there isn't like a database. There's not like, yes, it learned by reading all the books in existence since April 2023. But it doesn't actually know those things. It uses it to like kind of work on its thinking, but it doesn't actually have the database in hand. And so, where if you Google something, right, you're getting at least like a person like actually had to write it out and put it on the internet. Whether the internet, that article on BuzzFeed or whatever was true or not, some human did posit that as what someone should know on there, right? And whether it's an encyclopedia or Wikipedia, right? I mean, we all know what our normal use of the internet is, and we've always trusted that. We've always trusted in a certain sense. People said you can't use Wikipedia on your college exams and your essays and things. And so there's always been a level of we still always have to discern that. But once again, there was always particular knowledge at the end of the database. There was actual like input information there, where you seem to be telling me that there isn't. That there isn't a black box that we can open up and see the particular database they're using, the particular knowledge that we've put into the machine. Is that would be like a big difference? Is that essentially these are kind of inching towards more of consciousness than just an encyclopedia?
Well, I don't know as much as Mike about. My expertise is the intersection of like business use cases and AI, so not as much for data scientists. But we don't know how the models work that well, but they are pulling the information from the human written stuff. So it's not like if you ask it someone brought up to me recently, like, hey, it's writing theological things, or it's writing prayer service, etc. It's just pulling that from the foundations that the church has given. I think there's like this amazing opportunity with think of our Catholic faith, and we have all of this theology and philosophy that's been developed that actually doesn't conflict with each other. It actually is sound and reasonable. Like when is a human person a person? There's not, and since there's that consistent logic, then the LLMs and stuff can actually work with that really well, because it's not conflicting. So I think what's different about the internet and stuff is that information used to be, it's so weird to think like a year back how dumb computers were. Realistically, they could add like an Excel, column quickly, but they couldn't really mimic a human's thing at all. Now it's like, we used to take all this time to train a doctor. Let's say my dad and brother are both physicians, but you try and take all this scientific peer-reviewed research and cram it into the head of the person so they can regurgitate it to the patient in the right context, right? That ability to kind of understand context and stuff has changed now to where that can be stored in a machine, and it can reference the right information with the question you're asking. And I think, Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong, part of that has to do with that vectorization that he was talking about, where it's like it takes your question, turns it into numbers, and looks at the pattern, and then looks at what information is most similar. But anyway.
Thank you. Two thoughts. So I heard two parts to your question at least. One was what's the value for the human beings that is knowledge so important, something like that. And then the